Last week we introduced this idea of masculine and feminine energy, and we spoke about the importance of the unification of masculine and feminine energy. We spoke about that the masculine-feminine energy combination leads to a completion in the universe. The completion we described as one of the names of God, as Ka, Yud and Hey, the Yud being the masculine, the Hey being the feminine. This was the letter difference of the word Ish and Isha. Ish, which is spelled Aleph Yud Shin, Isha, which is Aleph Shin Hey. So both have an Aleph and Shin, and the difference is the letter Yud and the letter Hey. And what you have is when you take those two letters, you have one of the names of Hashem, one of the names of the infinite. What you also have, that's common in both of those names, is Aish, the fire. So the fire, the energy of Hashem, is only found in the unification of the masculine and the feminine. Now, without that unification, you have energy, but it is not the unification of the universe. Now, what this series is about is about exploring what is the nature of masculine and feminine energy, and exploring and searching for the masculine energy within each of us as individuals, and then within each of us separately, and within the universe as a whole. So while this, of course, plays into the whole thing of male and female, what we are not talking about exclusively is male and female. That's not the entirety of when we talk about masculine and feminine. And tonight is really going to be about that. So just very, very quickly, last week we spoke about that people were created B'Tselem Elokim. People were created in the image. Adam was created B'Tselem Elokim. Adam, which is mankind, was created in the image of Hashem. And we spoke about Elokim being the energy, the name of existence. So it's the name of Hashem as Hashem interfaces with the physical existence of limitation, space and time. And mankind was created B'Tselem Elokim, which means that mankind is a microcosm of the infinite. And then I spoke about how Adam was actually both masculine and feminine. It wasn't a he with male and female parts. It was an it with a complete masculine and a complete feminine entity. Whether it was a Siamese twin or something like that, I don't know. Doesn't really matter for the sake of tonight's class. It's more that it was this entity. And then it became separate. And it became separate because just as it was created, just as it was created in the image of the infinite, so the separateness is a part of the infinite. Because if you think about it, the world that we live in is a world of separateness. If you look, you are separate from your chair. Not only are you separate, but you don't displace your chair. You can displace your chair. You can't exist in the same place as your chair. So we live in the realm of displacement, where no two things can exist in the same space or at the same time. And so what we exist is in a paradigm of separateness. So we have colors, which is a form of distinction. We have black and white, night and day, waves and particles. And then you don't just have dual, but you can have many different types of differences. The thing is that there is difference. And so part of the infinite is actually separateness. Part of this infinite existence of Hashem is the finite existence of difference that we have in this world. And therefore, we have Adam and Eve starting their narrative as a single entity and then being separated, only for the sake of humanity to bring about what? A reunification. Reunification doesn't actually mean that Adam and Eve come back and get sewn back together, but actually it's far more profound. Because that's like returning back to where it was. It'd be like people who insist in going back to the good old days. You ever hear people say, in the good old days? There were no good old days. If the good old days were so good, nothing would have evolved since then. But because things weren't so good, things have had to evolve. If things were the good old days, it'd be wonderful. We'd all have polio, like in the good old days, or in the good old days when we didn't leave the village, and therefore we didn't actually get to think out of our own box, like in the good old days. There are no good old days. There were good things in the olden days, but the good old days are not good. They're just old. And our mind filters the bad out. That is part of being a human being, is that our mind filters the bad out, and therefore we only have... we have more more positive memories than negative memories if you add up all your memories. You may have some very strong negative memories and not so strong positive, but if you had to add up the accumulation of memories, you'd find that you generally have more good memories than bad memories. So the good old days is just a figment of our imagination to refer to some things that were good in the olden days. But today are the good new days. And the good new days does not mean that we go back to the olden days, but rather we create something new that didn't exist in the olden days and is better than the olden days. So if in the good old days Adam and Eve were a unified existence, in the good new days Adam and Eve will remain separate and will exist as a single entity at the same time. So what we're talking about is something that's far more novel than the origin. In the origin, it was two things that were connected, and in the new thing, we're going to have separate things that are going to exist as one. Now, what do you think is a cooler party trick? When two things can coexist, or when two separate things exist as one? Obviously, the second is far more miraculous. If I tell you that I have a single entity and it's split into two and both grew, that's pretty cool. But what if I brought two things that are large, that are larger than a single space, and I told you for my next trick I'm going to fit both of these things in a single space, which can only hold one of them? What would you say? I'm interested in seeing this. That should be on Britain's Got Talent. That's a cool party trick. And so where we're heading in the universe is actually coming to a point where physical things will be able to coexist in the same space and at the same time. And the only way that can take place is with the absolute ego abnegation. Now, I'm not talking about from a physics point of view. I'm not talking about that physically things will exist in the same place, because that's the laws of physics govern our world. We're not here to break or defy the laws of physics or chemistry. What we're here to do is defy the science of human psychology. Human psychology doesn't allow two things to exist in the same place. And where we're going is actually having multiple things exist in the same place. Not because we are broken, not because we are decimated as a people, but because as we begin to discover ourselves, we will find the other. And as we discover the other within ourselves, there is space for two things. Anyway, that is where we're going to finish this series. I don't want to focus on that so much tonight. But I bring that up because we started there. We were looking at the two things that came from one, the male and the female, the masculine and the feminine. Tonight, what I want to look at is this term Havaya, which we spoke about last week. Havaya is the name of Hashem that refers to everything. It is the everything. It is the all. It is more than just the physical. It is all of existence is Havaya. Now, the reason why I want to talk about it is because we said that Ka, the name of Hashem, we said Hashem is made up of the masculine and feminine. So I'd like to show you how everything is made up of masculine and feminine tonight. And I'm not at all talking about people. So the one thing I'm not going to talk about tonight are people. We're going to talk about existence as masculine and feminine things. Now, Havaya. Havaya is the name of Hashem. If you'd spell it out, it is a Yud, which is a little dot. It is a Hey, which is an expanded letter. It's got right angles and disconnected aspects to it. Then a Vav, which is a straight column, and then another Hey. The Yud is a masculine letter. It represents a seminal drop. A Yud, a little dot. A Hey is a feminine letter. It represents expansiveness. The Vav is a letter of conduit, moving something from a higher point to a lower point. It is a very functional letter. And then you have Hey, which is another expansive letter, which is a feminine letter. And what I'd like to look at is if the name Havaya, if this name of Hashem is both masculine and feminine, I would like to look for, and Havaya is everything, all of existence, what I'd like to do is look for the masculine and the feminine within everything. Now, Havaya, the infinite, the existence of all, has 10, who's heard of the 10 Sefirot, the tree of life, those 10 circles and the lines and everything. So those 10 Sefirot are the makeup of everything. So Havaya is made up. Havaya is not made up of. Havaya expresses itself through 10 ways. So what are the 10 Sefirot? They are 10 traits It's the best word I came up with when preparing tonight. It's very hard to define the Sephirot when you're actually talking about them. It's 10 primary energies, 10 traits that make up everything. So take your personality for a sec. So you've got personality traits. And these personality traits would generally inform everything there is about you, right? So if you're a very giving sort of person, it doesn't just come out in times of charity. If you're a very giving person, when might you find these acts of giving? If someone comes to your house for a dinner party and you ask them, would you like some food? And they say yes, you're going to heap their plate. If you pass a poor person in the street who says, can I have some money? You're going to heap their hand with money. Maybe a few coins, whatever it is you're going to give. If someone says, can I have some of your time? You're going to say, yes, sure, you have access to my time. If someone says, can I have a lift? Sure, I'll give you a lift. When you are giving, it doesn't just come out in one area of your life. It is a trait that comes across in the whole way that you function. Likewise, if you're a more reserved person, if you're a more restrained person, it will come out the same way. It'll be in conversation. It'll be in the way you serve food. It'll be in the recipes that you cook. You might be more of a minimalist. You'll find that very giving people are not minimalists. You'll find minimalists are more than just minimalists. It's not just that they have a limited amount of furniture in their life, etc., etc. Minimalists, this cuts across their entire personality. And therefore, when you meet someone who is not a true minimalist, you will find that for a few days they are a minimalist. They only have the one couch, they have the one table, they have a few books on their shelf, they don't need anything more. But then slowly their apartments start accumulating with stuff because they're not real minimalists, they're just adopting minimalism. And so because this isn't just about one aspect of your apartment or your life or the way you speak, but it actually cuts to your very core. The 10 Sephirot are the 10 different energies that make up the entire universe, and not just the physical universe, but the many universes, if I can use that term, that make up the 4 primary dimensions of reality of Atzilus, Bri, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Asiya being the physical reality, the other 3 being non-physical realities, of which each one is more physical than the next comparatively. And it is also the energy that precedes dimensions of reality. You can find the 10 Sephirot in everything outside of the infinite, or inside of the infinite, whatever. We're not playing a game of semantics. So the 10 Sephirot exists throughout everywhere that you explore the metaphysical. The reason why I've given out pens and papers tonight is because I'd like you to draw, because we are going to analyze the 10 Sephirot in a number of different ways. So once you've got a paper, once you've got the paper, and if you're online and you'd like to do this, just quickly grab pen and paper. If you don't want to do this, if you're online, it means you're either in front of a computer or you're on a phone. If you're on a phone, this is going to be a bit harder, but if you're in front of a computer, just Google the 10 Sephirot, Google image it, and you'll get a picture of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. But if you want to draw it, what you want to do is draw 3 circles, 2 parallel and 1 centralized under it. So you've got a triangle, an upside down triangle. Well, it's not upside down, a triangle is any shape. But 2 circles and 1 below it, equally in the middle. So you've got 3 circles. Now what I want you to do is repeat that below. So you've got 3 circles and under it another 3 circles. And you're going to repeat that one more time. So you've got 3 sets of 3 circles. So you've got a right circle, a left circle, and then below it a central circle. Then a right circle, a left circle. Or you can, what George has got, what George has got is the complex version. But if you look just at the circles that he's got there, that's what I want. You don't need to have the lines. So you've got, so Michael, hold that up for everyone. That's perfect. Perfect. So 3, 3, 3, perfect. And then below your bottom circle, draw another single circle. So you have a total of 10 circles. This is your diagram of the tree of life. This is your diagram of the 10 Sephirot. The reason why they are stacked like this is what we are going to be learning about. What you're looking at is the tree of life. It's, if you want to ever, who's ever heard of the word tikkun? Tikkun olam. Tikkun olam is this mission that that many Jewish people are on to better the world, to fix the world, to heal the world. It's a call to action for Jews around the world. Tikkun olam is do something to better the world. It's a very nice rally call. There's a bit more to it, but it starts off with doing acts of goodness. And so Tikkun Olam manifests in helping African refugees, and Tikkun Olam is about helping the poor, and Tikkun Olam is about helping those with disabilities. Tikkun Olam is about just other-centered help. There's a higher spiritual reason why we do this, but I'm not going to go into it. The word tikkun is about fixing or creating order. Letaken is to order things that are out of order. Or to fix. What is fixing? You've got something that's broken, which means everything is in incorrect space. And when you are masakin it, when you are fixing it, you put it back into order so that it comes back to its original shape. These 10 circles that you have, these are the 10 energies of existence. And at different points, these circles, if you will, worked and did not work with each other. When they do not work with each other, when the energy is not correctly balanced, it leads to a breaking of the system. And therefore there is a healing and a correction of the system, of where they're placed in an order in which they will work together. What you have on your page is a balanced, not just because it's symmetric, but you have a symbol of balance of the energies. And we're going to go through them now. The top 3. So if you're with us online, which there are people online, you should have 2 circles followed by a third, and then repeated that set 3 times, and then another circle at the bottom. So the top 3 are called Chochmah bin Adas, or Chabad. So what you've got is the one on the top right is Chochmah, spell that how you want. The one on the left is Bina, spell that how you want. Chachma means spark of inspiration, not literally, that's what we're defining it as. Bina is orderly thinking. Da'as is the third circle, the one in the middle, and that is transferable knowledge, or just knowledge, or understanding, I don't know. Transferable knowledge is a description, and we're going with descriptions. Then you've got on the second set of circles, the one on the right is chesed. Chesed is best translated as outwardness, giving, or kindness. They're all different aspects of chesed. And then the one on the left is gvura, which could mean judgment, or strength, or restraint. Again, different aspects of the same idea. And then the one in the middle, below it, is Tiferes, which is harmony or beauty or balance. Then we get to our third set of 3. The one on the right is Netzach, which is victory or dominance, or overcoming. No, not dominance. I prefer overcoming. And then the one to the left will be Hod, which is humility or majesty or teamwork. Yesod is the third, the bottom one of that set of 3, and Yesod is foundation or point of delivery. And then the bottom circle that sits by itself is Malchus, which is either kingship or product, the actual product, or something. As in, it is something, which means everything until then is not a something. Okay, what you've got there, the top three are the intellectual process, the middle 3 are the emotional processes, the bottom 3, excluding the bottom single, the bottom 3 is an action-based process, and the bottom 1 remains what it says. It's a product. It is the product of all that. Okay. So now that you've got your 10 Sefirot, your chart, and the reason why Now you've got your own chart. You've written it. You've anchored it in your own way. Let's now split this up. We're now going to look. We're going to split this chart up multiple times, and what you're going to discover is that this chart is masculine and feminine in different ways. And sometimes when we talk about masculine and feminine, we're talking right and left. Sometimes when we talk masculine and feminine, we're talking top and bottom. Sometimes when we're talking masculine and feminine, it is within the feminine. And sometimes it is within the masculine. So what we will see, of course, you can see where this is going next week when I talk about males and females, and the week after when I talk about males and females, you can see where I'm going to be going, that we are all masculine and feminine, and therefore we don't compare men to women. We find we have more masculine women and more feminine women, more masculine men and more feminine men. And then we find the relationship between the masculine sex and the feminine sex. And then we will find humanity which generally behaves masculine and generally behaves feminine. So we'll be able to look at society. And suggest why, because the 10 Sefirot, if you would actually draw it as a man, as a human, those top 3 would be the head, the middle 3 would be the chest and torso, the chest to the stomach, and then the bottom 3 would be the torso, groin area, and legs, and then the bottom 1 would be a product that sits outside of the body between the legs, like a child. And if it's a woman, it's given birth, and if it's a male, it's sperm. So it's something that's already now detached from the body, so it's our product. So you can see why we're talking about men and women, masculine and feminine, because this is actually not only the energy force of the universe, but it is the energy force of humanity. If you will, this would be the chakra system of Jewish spirituality. We don't have a chakra system. That's not a word that's found in Kabbalah, but in how people in today's day talk about chakras being the energy system of a person and how it aligns in a person, then this would be the equivalent in that this is the energy system of the human as explained by Jewish spirituality. If you didn't get that, don't worry about it. If you're very learned and you find that that's inconsistent, don't worry about it. I was just using it as a pop example of, usually pop examples are wrong, but they capture a moment. Okay, so now let's talk about, what should I start with? Right and left. The right is chesed, is chochma, chesed, and netzach. So just draw a large shape that encapsulates the 3 on the right, and then likewise do it on the left. So you've got the 3 on the right and the 3 on the left in their own bubble. Now the middle ones we're going to ignore for a lot of this, because the middle ones are an interesting breed. Right now we're talking about masculine and feminine. We're not talking about dual, we're talking about single entity. The chochma, chesed, and netzach is masculine. The bina, gvura, and hod are feminine. What is masculine? What is feminine? If we come to a point of reproduction of the human race, if we look at how we do that, we notice there is a masculine and feminine dynamic. The masculine gives and the feminine receives. The masculine produces sperm and the feminine receives the sperm. Now, the feminine also produces an egg. So we've got this other thing going on, but we're not going to talk about that right now because that's for next week. Right now, we're just looking at this little dance. There is first the masculine output and then the feminine receiving. On the right, you will find that all the ones on the right can fall into a general name. It coincidentally has the same name as that second circle, that of chesed. And it's not so coincidental. It's because chesed best summarizes what's going on the right. What is chochma? In the thought process, chochma is when you have a spark of inspiration. You're having a shower, or you're going for a walk, but it's just an aimless walk, or it's just a longer shower than normal. So when you first get into a shower, it's like I need to explain to you. It's like I feel like I'm talking to my kids. When you have a shower, when you first get in, it's to test the water, make sure it's the right temperature. And then you're working out, you're going to wash yourself, what have you. And then eventually time begins to tick by. At that point, you're no longer washing yourself. You're spacing out. And that is where magic takes place in the shower. That's where new ideas start happening. That's where new thoughts pop in. You are completely in a state of egoless existence, in that you're not focusing on yourself. You're just kind of spacing out. You may be noticing the pleasurable experience of hot water running down your back, but you're kind of just like losing it. Chokhmah. In comes this idea. What is chokhmah? When you have an idea, if you had to describe it with your hands, if I made you all Italian for a moment, if I made you all Italian, what hand gesture would you describe for chokhmah? I had an idea. You never go, I had an idea. It's always, I had an idea. It's very expansive. Chokhmah is like an atomic explosion. There's this epicenter from which it just pops out, but it's very unstructured. It's very structured in that you know it's going to expand, and it might expand equally, and it will make a sphere and whatever it is, but it just goes. And there isn't an organization of knowledge when you have an idea. It's kind of like everything. It's all-encompassing, but at the same time, it's chaotic. You never have an idea which comes methodical. Methodical thinking happens after the idea. Chokhmah is this expansive. So Chokhmah is masculine. Chokhmah is masculine in that it is expansive. It starts from a little point and it just goes... The other thing about Chokhmah is it's very quick. When you have a good idea, it doesn't take an hour. When you have a good idea, it takes moments. The development of that idea may take an hour or 5 days or 7 weeks. But when you have an idea, it's moments and you've got it. So it's very quick and it's very expansive. That is masculine. Chesed, as an emotion, it's the second circle, is kindness. What is required for kindness? An extension of self to an other. Good extension, bad extension, makes no difference. You're extending yourself. You're lending yourself. What must be taking place if you're extending yourself? You're kind of happy to go with the flow. You're happy to go with the experience. So chesed is very much extending oneself, expanding oneself, allowing oneself to be taken on a journey by others. It's not ego. It's that there may be ego, there won't be ego. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the flow of chesed. What's mine, I'm giving to you because I'm taking your sadness on board and I don't want to feel sad. So chesed people take on everyone else's emotions. You've got a problem, I want to help you, I want to give to you because I'm just expansive and I'm lending myself to everything else, and therefore I'm extending myself to others. Again, what we've got is this radiating outwards sort of gesture when describing chesed, but it is an emotional thing. It is not an intellectual thing. When you feel something, I'm not saying there is no brain action, but I'm talking about what we call is an emotion. I'm feeling for you. I'm feeling kind. I'm feeling like giving. These are things. Netzach is a way of doing things. Netzach, which is our third circle, is that when you are doing something, you go for it. And you push yourself. And even if you're running out of energy, you keep pushing. It's having the stamina to push you. So what are you doing? You are pushing outward. You are pushing on. If something gets in your way, you push it out of the way. You destroy it. So again, you are dominating this in order to keep progressing. Now, there is a bit more you in that, because when it comes to action, someone has to be doing the action. So I have focused on you. But what we see again is it's less about the other and more about you as it relates to the other. So if something gets in your way, you're going to demolish it. You're going to remove it. You're going to hop over it. You're going to overcome it. You will do whatever you need to. It is not going to exist. If you see someone that is poor, you will enrich them. If someone wants a piece of you, you will give to them. You feel like you want to extend to them. And when you have a thought, you are developing new ideas. And what we've got here is all expansive. What we've got here is it's all about how it interacts with others in context of the one who's going through the experience, the action, or the thought. That is masculine. You might see that in masculine personality traits, in classic masculine. You might not. We'll talk about that next week. What is on the left side? We've got Bina, we've got Gvura, and we've got Hod. Bina is understanding, wisdom. What's Bina translated in English? Wisdom, understanding. What is Bina? Bina is the categorization of information. It is about sorting information. It is about analyzing and allocating information. So when you have an idea, when you have a chokhmah, then you have a bina process, which is the analysis of information. In order to analyze, sort, or categorize information, what must you have? Information. There is nothing new here. It is about creating an order out of what you have. Bina doesn't allow for new information. What it does is it processes existing information. Now, when you, what's the name of that challenge where you get these you go to these child-adult type shops and you buy these puzzles and you take them apart and then you try to put them together and you've got more pieces than you have space to fit them all, or you have more pieces than you require to complete the puzzle, and you've got to somehow work out how to jumble it all back together in a way that all the pieces work, and you look at it like it's impossible. I've got extra pieces. It's like an IKEA set. When you buy an IKEA set, it's perfect. When you put it together, you've got extra pieces. Where do those extra pieces come from? The thing's standing fine, and yet you've got more pieces. Bina is expanding the whole thing to a point that if you'd lay it out, you'd probably have more pieces and more information than you started. Because Chokhmah is this compact, there is no spare space. And it's in a chaotic way, it all fits together. Bina develops it. You might end up with a lot more information than you realize. And sometimes you need someone has an idea. I want to write a constitution. Brilliant idea. In that, they understood it all. If you then get constitutional lawyers to write out your constitution, you end up with 25 volumes. Nobody's able to remember the whole thing, but the original person who had the original idea in a way was able to subconsciously put the whole thing together. But once you break it up and once you spread it out, it becomes a lot bigger than it is. But as it becomes a lot bigger, it becomes what? Transferable. I can't give you all the numbers. But I tell you numbers. You don't know what I'm talking about. But if I tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll never be able to count all the numbers to you. But if I say numbers, you don't get what I'm saying. When I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get what I'm saying. It takes me a lot longer to give you each number than if I just said, here are all the numbers. Numbers, I'm giving them to you. But if I say, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, it'll be going on forever, but it's the only way for me to deliver. So Bina is like this compartmentalizing of the information of Chokhmah so that it is able to be grasped, and number 2, it can be delivered. Da'as, which is in the middle, is the delivery of that. I'm not going to go into the middle column tonight, so don't worry about it. Chesed, we said, is kindness. Gvura is restraint, the feminine energy. Gvura is restraint. Gvura is strength. When we talk about restraint, it's the restraint of self. It's very easy to let yourself go. Have you ever been in an argument? It's always easier to yell back than it is to restrain yourself. It's easy. Yeah, you're arguing with me, I'll argue with you. It's easier to raise your voice than to talk quietly when you're excited. Because when you're excited, you're on this chesed journey. You've got to give. It can be negative giving. It could be egocentric dominating chesed. But gvura is the restraint of self. It's the restraint of something. Now, in order to do that, what do you require? Strength. That's why gvura is called strength. You need strength to withhold. You need strength to hold back. So sometimes gvura is the holding back. Sometimes gvura is the strength that is required. And when we talk about strength as a whole, how do you measure strength? The ultimate way to measure strength is not by how much it pushes, but by how much it contains. That's how we measure strength in spirituality. We've got the difference between rushing rivers and strong dams, different ways of measuring strength using different metaphors. So gvura is about restraint. It's about building a box. It's about inhibiting. It's about holding. Now, you'll find that there are very inhibited people. They don't put any effort into it. That's because they are naturally gvura. Gvura is a feminine thing. You'll find men who are gvura, and you'll find women who are gvura. In context of pregnancy, in context of child creation, chesed is the giving of sperm. Gvura is the holding of the sperm, of the impregnation, of the fertilization of an egg. It is, and then it just stays, and it just stays, and it just stays, and the womb is designed to just hold until it is ready to release. And it is a slow, withheld process that apparently men would never be able to stomach. All right, so get it, stomach? That's what I was laughing at. So that's Gvura. Then we get Netzach and Hod. Netzach was about conquering and overcoming. Hod is about humility, majesty. Humility is what? Humility is where you suspend yourself when going about doing something. It's not about you overcoming problems. It's about problems getting solved. So what is the focus of Hod? It is other-centered. See, in order to be other-centered, what do you need to do? Withhold yourself. In order to allow an other to have space, you need to suspend yourself. Hod is the process of working on something, and therefore there is a suspension of self, or there is, when dealing with a problem, not allowing the problem to dominate you. So when you're in a Hod state of mind, problems don't impact you. You move past the problem. Or if it's a problem-solving exercise, you work with others. It's not about you solving the problem, it's about the problem getting solved. This is a feminine concept, Hod. So what we've now got is the right side of the Sephirot and the left side of the Sephirot as masculine and feminine. The middle are all going to be hybrids. So we're not talking about hybrids this week. So when you look at the right side and the left side of your chart, you may find now that all these things exist with everyone, and you will find that there are some things that are more dominant in one over the other. And from there we begin finding masculine and feminine qualities in society. Masculine and feminine. So let me give you an example of masculine and feminine. You'll find you'll find it on a social level. America, this is my idea about America. America is a masculine type country, in that it's very chesed based, it's very expansive, it's going on that whole world domination thing, spreading liberty for all and freedom for all. It's a good thing, could be bad, it could be good, it just depends what's in control of the truck, whether it's good or bad. Chesed can be positive or negative. We'll talk more about that next week. Russia is a very feminine, it's very gvura, it's a very closed environment. Now you'll say it's also on a goal to conquer the world. Yes, but it does it very differently to how chesed does it. So chesed and gvura both will do things, but they do things different ways. Russia is a very trapped country. Things don't come in, things don't go out. It's a very insulated type country when you compare it to America. I'm just talking about when you think about it. Now that idea of Russia you do find in mystical writings, not Russia, but those of Northern Europe, are described as Gvura. Different directions in the world are. So I may be inaccurate. It may just be my reading into the text, but I just want you to see how you can have whole societies that are multi-generational. Is it nature or nurture? Well, according to Jewish spirituality, the nature was there, so the nurture was going to always happen in the way that it does. Of course, you'll say, but America's not America. America really belongs to the American Indians, and America, as we know it, is actually the product of colonial settlement, etc., etc. Yes, whatever. I was just using it to make a point. Of course, there's that. But then I will also say perhaps the land impacted the types of people that moved there, and perhaps the types of people that moved there by hashgacha pratis, by divine providence, ended up where their soul was more in line with the land that they need to be in. So you've got these original Quakers and those sort of people. Perhaps their soul type is more aligned with the land that is the America of today than it was that of Spain or England or wherever else it was that came from, which perhaps was not in sync with their soul type. Anyway, not getting into that tonight, but that is a worthy conversation that would make for great table talk. Great table talk. Anyway, let's come back to here. The things on the right are masculine. The things on the left are feminine. Good. Now let's split these things a different way. The top 3 are masculine. The bottom 7 are feminine. So before we split things right and left, now I'm splitting things top and bottom. The top 3 are masculine, and the bottom 6 or 7 are feminine. Now, if masculine is giving and feminine is receiving, the top 3 are the intellectual process. There is no emotional process without the brain having first taken the information on. There is no emotion without the prior intellect or intellectual process. Intellect doesn't mean intelligence, nor does intellect mean consciousness here. It's the brain faculty versus the emotion faculty. You say, but emotions also start in the brain. You know what I'm saying, right? We're talking about the thought ahead of the emotion. Now, you'll say 100% you have emotions that come first. Very good. We'll talk about that next week. But we're talking about in the flow of energy, it first goes through the top three. Chochmah, Bina, Das. What do you now see? Bina, which in my previous explanation, which is on the left, was feminine. Suddenly it's become masculine. So now we're getting energies that are sometimes masculine, sometimes feminine, and other energies that remain permanently masculine, like Chochmah. Now I've got my lower 7. There were things in there that were once masculine, and now my new diagram, they've become feminine. So what we see is that things are a bit more fluid. Things can change, and it depends in what way we're looking at it. So the masculine top 3, Chochmah, Bina, Das, is the thought process. Now, which is interesting, because thoughts are very, 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 very small. How do you measure a thought, a brainwave? It's nothing. You use EEGs to measure brain activity. It's nothing. It's nothing. The amount of energy output. And if you think about thoughts take you on a journey, but they only take you so far. Emotions take you on a far. Emotions already are more developed, a creation than a thought. An emotion is going to pick you up and drop you off a lot more than a thought is. You will often have emotions attached to a thought. So you get excited about a thought. The thought itself is very cold. The excitement around gets you up, or the depression around gets you down. These feelings are much, much bigger. But ultimately, if right now there are people in this room feeling things and I'm not picking up on it. Why? Because they're your feelings. Ultimately, what's the thing I pick up most on? Actions. Actions are even more expressive. But feelings, you'll say, but hang on, feelings and actions sound very masculine. They're expansive. Yes, but emotions and actions only exist because there was a thought process that gave them the ability to exist. So you can't have an emotion without a prior thought or without a prior piece of information. You get angry because you saw something that was bad or something that was wrong. You do something about it because there is a response to something that has been processed. So these things are receivers of the original intellect. Now, the truth is, even those top 3 can be feminine compared to something that's not on your sheet, which is Keser, which is above it, which is, once again, even our intellect receives. So if something is in the position of receiving, it is feminine. If it is in the position of giving, it is masculine. Now you tell me, what are women? Women are sometimes givers, they're sometimes receivers. What are men? They're sometimes givers, they're sometimes receivers. So we're going to see again next week. We're going to play this out, the fluidity of male and female and how that works. But now you can see the 10 Sefirot as masculine and feminine. Thought versus emotion action. Another way to divide them is those middle 6, so not the top 3, just the middle 2 sets of 3, and the bottom 1. What's the bottom 1? The bottom 1 is a product. Where does the product get its entity, its description from? Where do you come from? You come from your parents. You are the product of your parents. Everything that you are, you have received from your parents. Everything that you are, if it is not received from your parents, it is received from the society which impacted you. We are constantly being molded by the world in which we live, the society in which we live, our friends, our family, our TV shows, our books, our magazines, our food. We're constantly receiving. We're just a sponge for other energy. So we are feminine in that we receive all this input. In relation to us, everything else is masculine, and we are a feminine. in that we are constantly receiving. Malchus, which is the bottom, which is translated as the kingdom, is because the kingdom receives. The kingdom I'm not going to get into why it's called that. The kingdom ultimately receives from the benevolence of the leader. It's not something we really relate to, but for most of history, that's been a very good metaphor. But, being that we live in a world that we don't have, there are benevolent leaders. I mean, I think Singapore is officially called a benevolent dictatorship or something.
Guided.
A what?
Guided.
A guided dictator. They never use the word benevolent? No? So, but I think they try to pride themselves on being benevolent, in that they are good to their community, they're good to their society. Whether it works or not is a separate question. Whether they are benevolent or not, it depends who you ask. Don't ask someone that's not Singaporean or someone that's been asked to not be Singaporean. But if you are Singaporean, it's a wonderful place. But by and large, the empire survives off the leader. We're not going to go into that now as much. That's why I like the word product. The product, though, has the ability, you notice it's in the middle. You know why it's in the middle? Because it's not a true feminine. Because the product will become a masculine in its own right one day. It will become the beginning of another process. And that product will now give birth and will begin to impact the things beneath it, which will be the next cycle of 10 circles beneath it. So the bottom is the masculine for the next top. But as far as the top in this chart is concerned, the top is masculine, the bottom is feminine. Or the middle six, which are the emotions and the actions that go into the output. So those six become masculine because they are part of the output to the feminine, which is the bottom. So now what we see is that... So let's now go back. Where did we start tonight? Excuse me. Where did we start tonight? We started that... We started by saying that the 10 energies, the 10 Sefirot of existence, are the energies, are the traits that make up all of existence. Everything is made up of this. As you can see, the human is made up of that because I got you to draw the shape of a human on your chart, or I showed you the human in the chart. But the truth is, you will find the worlds in this chart. You will find all sorts of things in this chart. And therefore, the makeup of everything is masculine and feminine. Sometimes it is more overtly masculine, sometimes it is more overtly feminine, sometimes it is a cross, and sometimes it interchanges. But what we discover now is the masculine and feminine nature of the essence of existence. Next week, what we're going to look at is what this means in context of men, what this means in context of women. Are there any questions on what we've done tonight? I actually did not think I was going to get through this information so quickly. This might be a first for me. But are there any... We've got time to discuss this. Are there any questions on this? Yes. How are you good with computers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you Google 10 Sefirot, you'll get, and go into Google Images, you'll get millions of images.
Okay.
So I did this, and I'm just curious why some of these pictures have din instead of gura.
Okay. So din means judgment. So that's why I translate it as judgment. What is judgment? When you judge something, you are removed from it. You are detached. You can only judge something from afar. You can't judge yourself, right? You can't judge yourself. You'll always be right in your own opinion, or you'll always be excruciatingly wrong because you're too involved with yourself. You can only judge something that is detached from you. So judgment is a form of restraint of self so that there's a focus on the other. But that focus is not necessarily a kind focus. It's a very analytical. So what are you using when you're going through judgment? You're using your binah. You're not asking for anything new. You're asking to understand what it is that you're looking at. So if you're a judge, literally a judge, you are looking at the facts as they are presented by the prosecution and the defense. And then you will analyze those facts. So the judge is the one that beholds all that. The emotion that a judge is required to have is not happiness or excitement or extension of self to the person in the dock. The judge has to be very, very impartial. And in order to be impartial, you need to be detached from the thing. And therefore you find some commonality. So I'm a human, you're a human, and that's about it. So that's why it's din, which is also why Elokim. I knew there was one more thing. Going back to the names of Hashem. So Havaya, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, when you say a blessing, Baruch Atah Hashem, Adnai, you're meant to actually have in mind, when you say that word, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. And if you look in Sephardi prayer books, it will say how to pronounce it and then what letters to visualize. Because when we pray, we're meant to be visualizing things. It's a meditative journey. It's not just blah, 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 blah. You're meant to have symbols in your head and shapes, letters in your head, etc., colors in your head. So we have Havaya. Havaya is entire balance. Now but the Elokim, for example, is Gvura. It's very, very left. Yes, it is very, very left, Elokim. How did God create the world? By giving it distinction, definition, you, me, time, past, present, future. These are all very distinct. Space is very distinct. So what do you require in order to create? The name of Gvura, the energy of Gvura is Elokim. Elokim, which is the same numerical value as Hateva, which is nature, is the allowance for a natural order. What is nature? Nature is, I may be wrong, but I'm not wrong. There may be a better way to say this, I'm saying, is the chain reaction between everything. It's the cause and effect of everything. It's the measurement of that, the explanation of the relationship between everything. That's what nature is. That's what the natural sciences are, the study of everything that is. That is Vera Elokim. When you meet scientists, what you will find is that they are not warm, fuzzy, fluffy people. They may be in real life, but not when they're talking about their study. Philosophers, those who are moving more, well, it depends what sort of philosophy. If you're moving into the abstract, the spiritualists would struggle more with time. Spiritualists would struggle to be in the right place at the right time. These things made less difference. In the study of science, every millimeter, every nanometer, every nanosecond, everything, every quark, everything is important. Don't zoom it up in some esoteric message. Allow everything to have distinction. And therefore the world is a very natural place, and therefore the only way to really explore the world as a human is via the sciences. Why do we have spirituality, which sits on the right? Because we have to bring that energy into the physical. We have to bring Chachma into the Bina, Chesed into the Gevura. So when a judge judges, they're meant to have din and allow for Chesed to come in. So don't start off as, you get someone who's just held up a bank and caused two people to have heart attacks and they died. And so in court they say this person should be up for 2 counts of manslaughter because they caused 2 people to have heart attacks. And our bank robber breaks down crying. I didn't mean it. I'm so remorseful. Please just try me for the crime of robbery, but not for manslaughter. So if your judge is a Baal Chesed, if the judge is moving out to the person, you can be, oh, poor thing, such regret. You know what? Let's just try him for the original crime of his intention, which was robbery. Let's let him off the manslaughter. A judge can't do that. A judge can't do that because you can't allow that emotional extension to dominate, or else we're never going to be rehabilitated. We're never going to be solving the problems in society. The judge needs to say, look, I see that you're remorseful. I will take that on board in sentencing. But it doesn't just mean you're crying, so I'm feeling sad. That's why to be a judge is a very hard thing, because you have to be both human and impartial. If you think about it, how is it to do that? I could never be a judge. If I was ever called for jury duty, I'd tell them I can't. For the very reason you want me is why I can't be there, because I can be easily won over. Easily won over. I'm trusting. I'm a sad case. I cry when there's a sad story. Even if I find out it wasn't real, I'm still sad for it. I'm no good at it. I'm no good at it. You need people who are more Balei Chesed, who can weigh up the facts. People who are Balei Bina. People can analyze. And we'll look into this more next week. You'll find people who are always having good ideas, can't explain the ideas to anyone. And then you get people who are very good at analysis and never have good ideas. But get them to work on a project, they're the best people for the job. So we'll look at this as personality types that, although we're not going to look at personality types next week as much as more masculine personality types and feminine, and why we generally do talk about Mars and Venus, why we generally do talk about men being hunter-gatherers, and where did all this evolutionary behavior come from in the way that men and women behave. Whether we believe in evolution or not is irrelevant. Let's just look at it as a story which best tells the story of human character traits. And then we'll also have to look at what happened, because I started last week, what happened as a result of the Industrial Revolution, which is where things became very, very tzimish, things became very, very mixed up, because the traditional roles were no longer required. Traditional roles were no longer required, and therefore we have to make sure that we're adapting to this new reality, which is a great place to be, because traditional roles became accidentally patriarchal or patriarchal. There's no L in there, it's patriarchal. It became accidentally so because, again, when humans don't check themselves, they start tending towards things that they can sometimes tend towards the worst version of ourselves. So patriarchal evolution is part of being human. So what we need to move into is the consciousness of masculine and feminine energy, and not the accidental roles of men and women, or else we'll end up with women chained to ovens washing dishes, and men part of secret societies solving the world's problems, and we'll be no better than we were 200, 500, 700 years ago. What we need to move back to is the spirituality of thousands of years ago, of where no one was chained to anything and no one was put into a box, but people emerged according to their strengths. So that's next week. Have a good night.